Thank you so much for joining us tonight and being part of the new Spider series. My name is Blake Stack. I'm the Senior Associate Director of the Bonner Scholars Program, and I also support our student engagement team here at the university. And I'm joined by my colleague, No. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Blake. So as Blake mentioned, my name is No, and I'm one of the assistant directors on the student engagement team here in our Center for Civic Engagement. I get to work alongside our first year Bonner Scholars and our second year Bonner Scholars, while also getting to support in other capacities our students in their engagement here on campus and in the Richmond community.
Fantastic. Thanks, E. So if you've joined us tonight, you have demonstrated or expressed an interest in the Bonner Scholars Program. And so we're super excited to give you just a brief overview of kind of the goals of the program and how you could see yourself potentially applying and participating in that program over the next 4 years. Before we get into that, we want to give you a brief introduction to the Bonner Center for Civic Engagement. Because we think it's important that you understand that the Bonner Scholars Program is one program that is offered within this larger context. And we do a lot of cross-campus engagement and support a lot of different people across campus. And so it's important that we share that before we start digging into the Bonner Scholars Program specifically. So we'll kick it off by just telling you a little bit about the mission of the Bonner Center for Civic Engagement. And our mission is that we want to prepare students for lives of purpose and connect students, faculty, and staff and community stakeholders in social change efforts that value the knowledge and potential in our communities. The thing that's really important, I think, as you look at this mission for the Bonner Center for Civic Engagement, is this last part, in social change efforts that value the knowledge and potential in our communities. So typically in higher ed, or what could be a tendency in higher ed, is that we might come to believe that we have all the expertise and all the knowledge to bring about positive change in a local community. And we really believe that that's not the case in terms of how we see our work. We know that there's a lot of expertise and there's a lot of people doing really excellent work here in the local Richmond community. And so we want to partner well with them and come alongside them and learn from them as we do this work together. And this gets a little bit to how we understand civic engagement as a whole. So we see civic engagement as a collaborative endeavor that seeks to make a difference in the local and global communities while collectively growing in our knowledge and values. Again, here, I think you'll see the words collaborative and collective. We are doing this work with and alongside of other amazing people here in Richmond. We are not coming in thinking that we know all the answers or that we're going to somehow solve these deeply rooted issues of injustice or poverty in our community. We really want to partner well with people who are doing excellent work. And so any student, any faculty member, any Bonner Scholar who's going to do work with us, we're going to try and live out those purposes and those values as we do this together. Okay, I'm going to jump into a little bit of finding your passion. So we work in a lot of different issue areas, housing and homelessness, economic workforce and regional development, healthcare and public health, arts and culture, sustainability, food access, immigration and resettlement, public policy and government, DI, diversity, equity, inclusion, education. So wherever you find yourself or wherever a student finds themselves, even a faculty member or a staff member, we try and build pathways for people to connect with those issue areas here in the Richmond community. And what that ends up looking like is that we have a lot of different partnerships here in the Richmond region. Some of those are doing direct work with a local organization that's like within a school, maybe doing some tutoring and mentoring. And you see that here in higher achievement and art for the journey. And some of them are focused a little bit more on a regional level, like Health Brigade. Health Brigade is doing work trying to think about health-related outcomes for the broader Richmond community. City of Richmond, RBA Green, again, they're thinking about sustainability on a broader regional level. So we do work with organizations that focus both locally with individuals and more broadly thinking about our region as a whole. And if you wanted to get engaged in these opportunities as a student or again, a staff or faculty member, we have a portal at engaged.richmond.edu where you can go to how to volunteer. And here you would find a lot of different tools and resources to engage in local community, but you'd also get connected with a staff member here in the Center for Civic Engagement. And we would sit down with you and do some advising to get you connected to different organizations and initiatives here in Richmond. But engagement is not the only thing we do. We also do a lot of enrichment and educational events, and I'm going to kick that to E to talk a little bit about those.
Awesome, thanks so much. So for our events and excursion, if you'll go to the next slide for me, Blake, this gives you some insight into the campus-wide programming that we do. And it is in our wheel that we hope that the larger student population is able to tap into the community and into the city by partaking in some of the different excursions or events that we have. Some of you may know or have heard about the Endeavor program, and there's a program specific called Roadmap that we do in the fall semester where students get to take part in excursions out in the Richmond city. And there are also different other modes of ways that students can still be involved in the spring semester while still being here on campus, but really our biggest focus is to get you connected into the city of Richmond. And so I will continue to talk and share a little bit more about with you the Bonner Scholars Program. We'll take more of a deep dive into what it is and what it entails. Specifically, before I get started about what a day-to-day would look like, I want to talk to you a little bit about our community building. This is one of the biggest focus that our program has. It's not just about your own individual growth, but it is really about the community that you'll build and that you'll foster in your time as a Bonner Scholar. We do this through different modes of programming that we have, and some of those are Bonner Cornerstone experiences. So for the first year trip, first years get to experience and spend time together visiting around specifically the DC area. And then during their sophomore exchange, during your sophomore year, you'll get to have the opportunity to connect with different Virginia schools who are also Bonner Scholar programs as well. And then in your junior year, you get to embark on a excursion in the city, typically at an art studio, and spend some time doing some reflection. And then during your senior retreat, you get to spend that year-long process of working on what's called your presentations of learning. So as you can see through these different modes, the hope is that you'll be able to make lifelong friends, but then also continue to engage in the community alongside these friends as well. There's a lot of opportunities for students to also have leadership roles, such as leading community building events through one-time service. And other modes that they could tap into are movie nights, mentorship programs that we've had students lead here within the Bonner Scholars Program itself. And so just a couple different ways for you to tap into the community while you're here at the University of Richmond as a Bonner. And for the next portion, we'll talk a little bit more about your engagement and participation. So of all the hours that you'll commit to as a Bonner Scholar, 80% of those hours are going to be focused on direct community engagement. So this is going to look like in person at the organization that you'll be serving with. And the other 20% of that is something that we like to call training and education. And so you're probably like, what is that? And what does that entail? And so this looks more so heavily as far as class meetings with your cohort weekly. And what that looks like is sometimes you'll have campus-wide meetings with just the Bonner cohorts, but also sometimes they'll also have moments where you'll be able to develop your critical thinking skills and your civic knowledge through conversations that you'll have in these meetings. Blake, can you go to the next slide for me? Thank you. And in those meetings, what you'll also see is moments of reflection where you'll be able to kind of tap into the engagement that you are doing weekly. And we have events that's designed to kind of help you have conversation around social change and policy, and content to develop, like I said, your civic knowledge. One of the notes that I'd like to make here that you'll see is we do have priority class registration for students who are a part of the Bonner Scholars Program. And this is a way for you to be able, or for us to really support you in designing your class schedule and in making sure that, yes, you are making space for the requirements that are expected of you as a Bonner, but that there's also capacity for you to be creative in the way that you would like to partake in service. Yeah, and so I'll kick it back to Blake to kind of talk more about the funding.
Wonderful, E. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about money, money and civic engagement. They do intersect. We're not here to obviously just line our pockets, but there is an aspect to funding in the Bonner Scholars Program that's really special and really unique. So students, we know that different students have different financial needs. And so the Bonner Scholars Program is able to support students in actually paying you when you do your work in the community. So instead of needing to worry about potentially working another job on campus, you can get paid through your work in the community. Some students do actually work another job on campus if they need to do that, and that's great too. But we want to support students in providing some financial support because we know you're working hard and we know that you're engaged. And so we want you to have some compensation for the work that you're doing. So specifically what this looks like is that you earn about $3,600 in hourly earnings, during the academic year. And this is dispersed in bi-weekly payments. And then during the summertime, you would have $4,500 given to you for two 280-hour summer internships. And these internships can be both local and global. They can be here in the US, they can be in other places around the world. And these are really rich experiences where students get to explore something that we may not have here in the Richmond community. So we've seen people do some social enterprise work in India. We've seen people focused on different like sea turtle initiatives in different parts of the world. We've seen people stay here and do some really intensive local internships with the guidance of a mentor and plug into different initiatives, either here in Richmond or back at home. We've had folks work at the National Institutes of Health. These are all really rich experiences. And so you can get support for doing those things through the Bonner Scholars Program. I want to say that this is in addition to what you typically receive for what is called the Richmond Guarantee. The Richmond Guarantee is something that the university has made available to students to have one paid summer experience, whether that be research or a business internship or a nonprofit internship. You still get access to what is called the Richmond Guarantee. You might also hear it called URSF, University of Richmond Summer Funding, URSF. But our funding is actually in addition to that. So you get 2 additional paid summers through the Bonner Scholars Program. And that's really important because through the Bonner Scholars Program, you could have 3 summers fully paid for, should you choose to do that. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then we also offer a $500 stipend during the summer prior to your senior year for students who have successfully completed the requirements of the program. It's a nice little bonus as you're going into your senior year. So $3,600 during the academic year. And that is, again, broken up over 2 semesters, about $1,800 per semester, $4,500 over the course of 2 summers, or I should say for each summer. So it'd be 2 summers. So that's 9,000 total. So 4,500 for each of those summers, in addition to the return guarantee, and then $500 in a stipend prior to your senior year. Okay, and now I'm going to kick it back over to E to talk about abroad a little bit.
So through the Bonner Scholars experience, you'll also be able to have the opportunity to study abroad. And this will just look a little different as far as some of what that funding may look like for you. So to support you financially, you will have the opportunity to still partake in a mode of community engagement, whether that be you are committing to 62 hours or 125 hours. And your financial support for that would look different. So you have about $750 that would be given to you if you chose to complete 62 hours of community engagement, or about 1,500 for around 125 hours of community engagement. So this would be a part of your financial aid that you would still receive, and it would be distributed as a refund, or it would end up being applied to your loans as well.
Great.
So for this next portion, we're going to talk a little bit about what a typical week would look like for you as a Bonner Scholar. So for the first half, you would be partaking in what's called Bonner Exploration. And this is kind of going to be your onboarding experience into the program, your first full year. So typically we ask that our Bonners serve about 8 to 10 hours a week. And so what we've done is kind of broken it down for you to see some of the things that I've talked about a little bit earlier on. So for the first half of the graph, you'll see on Mondays, you would serve from 3 to 6. And then you'd kind of keep that same rhythm on Thursdays as well. But then you'll see what's called class meetings on Wednesday nights. So this refers to the training and education piece that I talked about a little earlier on. So this would be your weekly class meetings that happen 7 to 8:30 on every Wednesday night that would be given towards the percentage that you would need for your T&E requirements. And then Friday afternoons, you'll have the opportunity to be able to go out into the city on an excursion along with the rest of the first year Bonner cohort. And sometimes you might even want to leave a little room for you to participate in a Saturday one-time service experience that might be outside of the original organization that you find yourself serving with in the week. And then for your second year in the program, so as a sophomore, we would still have some form of T&E expectation of you, but it would move to more of a every other week basis. However, we still encourage you to do service and partake in one-time service on the weekends. So sometimes you might even find yourself having a T&E experience that you end up doing on a weekend, which is known as Bonner Skills. And that's just room for you to be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of the conversations that you might be having in a class meeting. And again, I just want to emphasize here that we're looking at about 8 to 10 hours that a Bonner is expected to bring in for their weekly community engagement portion.
Yeah, thanks so much, E.
Yeah.
One important thing to note here is the way that E has wonderfully laid this out is this gives you space for that moment when you have a really big test coming up the next day and you need to pause that week and you need to say, oh, you know what? I've got a really big test coming up tomorrow and I think I should give myself a little extra time to study. I'm going to not do that one-time service. When you do this committed work, like E has laid out, then you have more flexibility in your schedule when those kind of one-time needs arise. So we're kind of laying out like a good model for you. But there is some flexibility in this, like for breaks or like spring break, Thanksgiving break, like you wouldn't have to do hours over those times
Right.
if you arranged your schedule in such a way.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to take this one, E?
Yeah. So, is it possible to take a semester off, and what would that look like? So, one of the biggest things that we hop on our students is to be able to know that we understand that academics come first, but we also understand the flip side of that. And one of the biggest things we encourage our students always to do is to take care of themselves. So, if there's ever a moment where you find yourself feeling like you may need to press pause on a semester of your community engagement, there's actually room for you to do that in the Bonner Scholars Program. And so you can opt out of a community engagement for at least up to 2 semesters before needing to necessarily withdraw from the program. So this might mean that in a fall semester, you decide to take the semester off because you might have a heavier workload or course load of what you've committed to academically, and you want to press pause on your community engagement. There's room for you to do that in a conversation that you would have with your advisor in the program, and you can talk through next steps of what your return would look like for that following spring semester and the best ways that we can support you. And now this doesn't mean that the community has also pressed pause on your time of engaging with us. So we would still obviously have all our doors open to you and still support you in the ways that you needed that semester that you were taking off from the program.
Nice. Thanks, Eve. All right. So one thing we want to do is we want to give you a little bit of a picture of some alum who have come through the program and have gone on to do some really great work here in Richmond and beyond, because we've kind of outlined like, wow, this is a pretty significant commitment. And this is something that we want people to thoughtfully consider before they apply. So here's some of the students who have made that commitment and what they're doing here in Richmond and beyond. And the first one is Peter Braun. Peter was a geography and the environment major. He was a Bonner Scholar, like I've said, volunteered with the City of Richmond's Office of Sustainability, which then opened up some doors for him to start interning with the Decent Climate Coalition. He ended up receiving the Exemplary Service Award. And when he graduated, he like very soon afterward started working with the Capital Region Land Conservancy and did some excellent work with them. He also just recently transitioned from that organization and is now the Built Environment Policy Analyst at the Richmond and Henrico Health District. So Peter was a committed Bonner for all 4 years, really thrived in his role and thrived in his work here at the center. And that was just the beginning of a lifelong, life in the sense of like being an aspiring, amazing, 20-something-year-old, right? But we do think like, obviously this is where Peter is headed, right? Peter is headed in terms of really deeply committed to environmental justice, sustainability efforts. And so the Bonner program has been a catalyst for him really moving in that direction. So this is a recent alum that we really just wanted to share with you a little bit. And we have a couple more. Kavan Thompson was a sociology major, chemistry, women, and sexuality studies minor. Again, Bonner Scholar, worked with the Science Museum of Virginia. His senior year, he interned in our office as a senior program associate, or what we say as a civic engagement program associate. He also took on a lot of other leadership opportunities across campus. He created this amazing program called Spider Drop at the beginning of the year. He served on the Board of Trustees Advancement Committee and was asked by Kamala Harris to be on the Young Men of Color panel during his senior year as well. And currently, Kavan is in Texas and he's a Teach for America instructor. So Kavan has done a lot of amazing things here in Richmond and beyond. and really proud of him, and excited for the work that he continues to do. And the Bonner program was a really integral part of his experience at the university. And then finally, Brianna Silva graduated in 22. She was a journalism and political science double major. Again, a Bonner Scholar, volunteered with the International Rescue Committee and the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. And Brianna was a student similar to Kavan and even Peter, who navigated the program during COVID. So you can imagine trying to be engaged in the local community when the local community says, like, we have to close our doors. But she continued to persist. She founded an organization called Mass for Richmond. She did some internships with the Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Neighborhood Kindness Project. And then later on, when restrictions started to ease up a little bit, she got an internship with the Cory Booker, our US Senator. And today, she's the Deputy State Scheduler to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. So Brianna has done a lot of great work, and the Bonner Scholars Program was an important tool that opened up, again, some doors for her to continue to be engaged, that then led to further engagement in the areas of policy and advocacy and political engagement in the ways that she wanted to be engaged after she graduated. Okay. E, this is you.
Awesome, thanks. Well, I hope hearing about some of our really awesome alum excites you all about applying for our Bonner Scholars Program. So the application is live now. You can go to engage.richmond.edu and then select programs in order to access the application. It consists of 3 prompts that are centered and focused around civic engagement, and the recommendation letter is optional. And what will happen next after you've submitted your application is that it would be reviewed over by our committee, and your applications will actually remain anonymous, and they will be due on Friday, May 10th. So make sure that you get your applications in prior to then, and you would be notified of the acceptance or waitlist or denial in about mid-June. Yeah, and if you've got any questions that come up in the meantime, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat now, but also connect with us at spidersengage@richmond.edu.
Fantastic. Thanks, E. That was great. So we do have some time for a few questions. We're here, we're live. All of this will be recorded, and so it will be posted on the website later on. But we're excited to hear any questions you might have as you consider applying for the program. And let's see here. Love it. So how selective is the program? That is a really good question. So we get on average around 75-ish applications. Sometimes it's slightly lower, sometimes it's a little bit more, depending upon the year, to the program. And we select 25 first-year students. So that just gives you a little bit of a ratio there. It's about a 33% acceptance rate. So that's a great question. So it is competitive, but it's not insurmountable. And we would definitely encourage you to apply if you're interested. Great. Oh, so this next question. Can I still volunteer in Richmond if I don't get into the Bonner Scholars Program? E, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So that's a great question. Yes, absolutely. Even if you are not a part of our Bonner Scholars Program, this kind of touches on the piece of our presentation that talks about the larger work our Center for Civic Engagement does, and different ways that you can still partake in community engagement in the Richmond city. We have advising sessions that typically happen throughout the week, where you can have have a one-on-one session with one of our program assistants that can kind of talk you through what it looks like and how to volunteer with one of the organizations. And a helpful piece of information might be you can visit our website at engage.richmond.edu and visit that How to Volunteer page to see the different, some of the different opportunities that you have and that are open to you for you to serve.
I see. Okay, the next question we have is the application only available to freshmen? Good question. So we do have walk-on scholar positions. Every year we might have a student who maybe they withdraw from the program because they've realized, you know what, I want to focus my time and efforts in a slightly different way here on campus. And we cheer those students on when they make those decisions. Or we might have a student who might transfer, but not from the University of Richmond. Who wants to transfer from U of R? Okay. So yes, we do have some open slots, right? Which leaves a couple open positions. So like maybe 1 or 2 slots, you know, when we look at the second years and third years. So it is possible to get into the Bonner program later on. I will say, just to be very honest and very open with you all, that those spots are a lot more competitive. We might get around 30 to 35 applications for maybe 2 to 3 slots in a given year. So it's not impossible to join later on. It is just a little bit harder. So if this is something that you're really committed to, you're really excited about, definitely want to, you know, give you the information you need to consider applying as a first year. But again, it is open for those who might want to apply later on as well. Okay. All right, we got another question. Going back to the typical schedule for a Bonner, are the Wednesday night meetings mandatory? What if I have a class that night? Great question. Yeah, I'm going to turn this one to you.
Thanks. So great question. Those Wednesday night meetings in your first year and on are mandatory. So what we like to do is share that schedule with you all. But so there was a note where I said Bonner Scholars have priority registration, and this is actually one of the reasons for our Bonners who will be able to get connected to classes and through having that priority registration, they're able to kind of think ahead and plan ahead to making sure they have blocked off those Wednesday nights. Now, if you get registered for a course, which has happened for an upperclassman, there are other modes of engagement that we'll do for the training and education side of things, but typically those meetings will always happen on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8:30.
Yeah, great question. Okay. Yeah, here's another good one coming in. Can I be a Bonner and join a fraternity or a club sport? Good question. Absolutely, yes. So if you noticed the 3 students that I showed you earlier in our time together, Peter, Kavan, and Brianna, actually, each of them were involved in other, you know, campus life groups here on campus. Some of them were played rugby, some of them played ultimate frisbee, some of them were on student government, some of our students are in fraternities and sororities, right? So students, the Bonner Scholars Program is an important and significant commitment that students make, but it is not the only commitment that students make here at the university. So yes, if you have other interests and things like that, we have lots of students who find meaningful commitments outside the Bonner program. It is a lesson in just like time management and planning and being careful about your schedule and things of that nature. But no, we see a lot of students really thrive in a lot of other spaces on campus. So absolutely, we want to encourage that and support you in doing that. Okay. We'll leave it open just for one more. Okay, love it. Think that might be it for tonight.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. These were excellent questions. Thank you for being curious and inquiring about the Bonner Scholars Program. It's been lovely to be with you this evening, and we really hope that you'll consider applying. Remember, the deadline is May 10th, so don't be late on that deadline. Stay close to our website for any updates regarding that deadline. Again, it's engage.richmond.edu. Go to programs, find the Bonner Scholar Program, and you can apply right there. We hope you have a great evening. And again, feel free to email us if you have any questions in the coming weeks.
Yep. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night.